I'm going to give you an inside view on what it's like to feed red wiggler worms. I save up a collection of eggshells that get to dry out on top of the fridge, and I collect a container full of little veggie scraps, apple cores, tea bags, and that sort of thing. And when the container is full and before it goes moldy, I take some time to go and feed it to the worms. Eggshells are like glass once they're dry enough, and they're so satisfying to crush. Using a coffee mug speeds up the process. I keep my worm bin in the bottom shelf of the linen closet. Keep it covered in a pillowcase for optimal airflow so it doesn't get too wet. Here you can see we have a chopped up cannabis plant. It hermaphrodited and had to be culled, unfortunately. That means it grew male flowers. This little guy is my resident pill bug. There were two, but I've only been finding one lately. They came with some garden soil that I moved with from the coast, and they have been living quite happily in the worm bin. It is very common to see pill bugs and worms in the same compost bin, as they are both part of the composting process, and they tend to coexist very well together. One of these days maybe I'll get some more and I'll put them in there, and maybe I'll get some pill bug babies. That would be a lot of fun. Pill bugs really like cut up greens, so any bits of green material, they'll probably just sit there and munch away on them. And here are my red wigglers. I can't believe I only started with 3 in a coffee cup. I use a careful scooping motion so I don't hurt anybody when I'm digging a nice little hole in the compost. And here's a juvenile. You can see little mites running around on my hand. Those are normal in a worm bin. If you've got too many, it means it's too moist and you'll see condensation on your bin, but because of the pillowcase covering, I don't get a population overgrowth, which is great. I used to have thousands of them and it was nasty. I wiped down the sides of the bin, cleaned off the lid, and then once I put the pillowcase on there, their numbers dropped significantly. And then all food items must be buried completely, as to prevent mold growing on top. It is helpful to use some potting soil, like some used potting soil or some garden soil, to give the bin a bit of a substrate to bury food items in. It also introduces a lot of good bacteria for the worms and for your compost health. Pick a few different places in the bin to bury the items so that it's somewhat distributed and there's space for everybody to get in. I buried potato peelings and a lot of them sprouted, so I just turned them into more worm food, just tearing them up and burying them as well. There is not enough energy to the potato peelings to really grow a good potato, so I'm not going to worry about it. Add the eggshells on top. They don't really need to be buried, they're just dry. It's so satisfying. Perhaps I should make a worm bin ASMR series. All the little clinking sounds of the little glass eggshells. So satisfying. It can be very tempting just to keep digging through and touching the compost just because it's such a satisfying feeling. But once you're done, it's good to just tuck them all away and then leave them undisturbed until next feeding time. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It happens about once every 3 to 4 days. put the cover back on, put the string back on to hold it, and we're good. The lowest maintenance pets ever.